The camera was rolling as I stumbled upon the secret that shattered my family. My father, the man I idolized, was betraying my mother with her best friend. In that devastating moment, I was just 10 years old, but courage surged through me like wildfire. With trembling hands, I pressed record on my phone, capturing the betrayal in real time. Every whispered lie echoing through the empty house. By the time my mother found out, it was too late. The truth had been exposed, and our world crumbled in an instant. My name is Harper. I was forced to grow up when I learned that love can disguise itself as the deepest betrayal. The air felt heavy as my mother, Sarah, stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mask of disbelief and confusion. I could see the internal battle raging within her. She wanted to deny what was right in front of her, yet I could almost hear the click of pieces falling into place in her mind. The camera in my hand felt like an anchor, grounding me in a moment I never wanted to witness, yet couldn't look away from. It was as if the weight of my father's past had suddenly materialized in the form of this single, devastating revelation. I had thought that capturing the ordinary moments of my family would bring us closer, but instead, I had documented the unraveling of our lives. "Harper, please tell me this isn't true." My mother's voice broke the silence, shaking with raw emotion. Her eyes searched mine for reassurance, but all I could offer was a silent nod. The betrayal had seeped into the very fabric of our lives, and I couldn't pretend anymore. My heart ached for her, yet I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, hanging in the air like a storm cloud, and for the first time, I could see the cracks in my father, James. He had worn the mask of the perfect dad for so long that I had almost forgotten there was a man beneath it, one capable of disappointing us all. "Harper, you shouldn't have recorded this," he said, his voice low and shaky, as if the weight of his own actions was pressing down on him. He took a step towards me, but I instinctively recoiled. I wasn't ready to be soothed by empty reassurances. I wanted to scream at him for every lie he had ever told, for every moment he had chosen to shield us from the truth instead of protecting us. "This isn't what you think," he continued, desperation creeping into his tone. Yet his words felt hollow, devoid of the warmth I once sought in him. Mia, my best friend, who had been with me through countless ups and downs, stood silently by my side. She hadn't wanted to intrude, yet I could feel her presence as a solid wall of support. It was in moments like this I understood the true meaning of friendship. She didn't need to say a word for me to know she was there for me, ready to help me face the storm raging in my family. As the tension in the room thickened, I glanced at her, searching for courage to face my father. She offered me a small, encouraging smile, and it felt like a lifeline. "Then explain it to me, Dad," I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. "What do you mean by, 'this isn't what I think'? I saw everything, every whispered secret and every hidden shame." My words hung heavily between us, and the room seemed to shrink as James struggled to find the right response. I watched the flicker of emotions play across his face: anger, guilt, but most of all, fear. Fear of losing the family he had tried to protect in his own misguided way. "Harper, please understand that I did what I thought was best for us," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you or your mother." His eyes darted to Sarah, who was still standing in shock, her heart breaking in slow motion. I could see the moment his words hit her, felt the way they wrapped around her like chains, pulling her deeper into a world of hurt. "Best for us?" she echoed, disbelief coloring her tone. "You thought hiding the truth would protect us? You thought lying would keep us together?" I could see her anger brewing, and it filled me with a sense of hope. Maybe this was the moment we could finally unearth the buried secrets, expose the lies that had formed walls between us. "I made mistakes," he admitted, his voice cracking under the weight of his shame. "But it's not just me. Your mother has her own secrets." My heart raced as I turned to Sarah, whose expression twisted from shock to a guarded resolve. What was she hiding? Suddenly, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, as if a storm was brewing, not just within my father, but also within my mother. "I'm not the one who broke our family, James. You did that," she replied, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "You took our trust and shattered it. You took my love for you and turned it into something I can't even recognize." I felt as if I were standing in the eye of a hurricane, the destruction swirling around us. But at the center, there was a strange stillness. "I need to understand, Mom," I urged, my heart racing as I realized that this conversation was about to peel back the layers of everything I thought I knew. "What do you mean by secrets?" I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the struggle to reveal the pain she had kept buried for so long. Sarah hesitated, glancing between James and me before finally taking a deep breath. "There's so much you don't know, Harper," she began, her voice softening. "Things I kept from you to protect you, things that might change how you see us." The weight of her words hung in the air like fog, thick and suffocating. I braced myself for the revelations ahead, aware that our lives would never be the same after this moment. As the storm continued to rage, I felt an unexpected resolve building within me. Whatever happened next, I was determined to face it head-on, to carve a path toward healing, even if that meant confronting the ghosts of my family's past. With Mia by my side, I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and unspoken words. My mind raced as I replayed the moment I captured on my camera, a fleeting glance that revealed more than I had expected. The photograph was a key to our family's hidden stories, one that I couldn't ignore any longer. "We need to talk to them," I said, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my stomach. Mia nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. Together, we made our way back to the house, each step heavy with anticipation of what lay ahead. As we entered, I found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a steaming cup of tea. She looked lost in thought, her gaze distant, as if she was trying to comprehend the fragments of her own life. I could see the weight of her secrets in the lines etched on her face. It was time for me to break the silence that hung between us like a thick fog. "Mom, can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to me, surprise and concern flickering in her eyes. Before she could respond, James appeared in the doorway, his expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. The moment felt charged, as if all the unsaid words had filled the air between us. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone cautious. I exchanged a quick glance with Mia, who stood beside me, her support grounding me. I took another breath, steeling myself for the conversation that would change everything. "I found something," I began, holding up my camera for them to see. Their eyes widened as I recounted the story behind the photograph, the moment frozen in time that revealed the tension between them. I felt the heat of their gaze, the way their expressions shifted from surprise to confusion. "Why didn't you tell me?" I pressed, the words spilling out before I could stop myself. "You've both been acting like everything is fine, but I can see it's not." Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her fingers tightening around the cup as if it were a lifeline. James glanced at her, a silent plea passing between them. It was James who broke the silence first. "I made mistakes, Harper," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "Things that might have affected your mother and you." I felt my heart race as I listened, the vulnerability in his words opening a door I had never expected to knock on. I wanted to know everything, every detail that had shaped our family, but I also feared what those truths might mean. I looked at Sarah, hoping to find answers in her eyes, but she seemed lost in the storm of her own emotions. Mia stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "We're here to understand," she encouraged, her presence an anchor amidst the chaos. "Whatever it is, we can face it together." I admired her bravery, her unwavering loyalty shining through in the tense atmosphere. Slowly, Sarah released her grip on the cup, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world had just been lifted, even if just a fraction. "I wanted to protect you," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "There were things from my past that I thought were buried for good, but they're resurfacing, and I don't know how to handle it." My heart ached for her, the burden of her secrets visible in the way her hands shook. I felt a surge of compassion for the woman who had always been my protector, now standing vulnerable before me. "Whatever it is, we're family," I insisted, my voice firm. "We can handle it together." James nodded in agreement, and I sensed a shift in the room, a fragile connection forming as we faced the storm of our realities. "Let's take this step by step," he suggested, looking between Sarah and me. "We need to talk about what happened, all of it." As the conversation unfolded, each revelation was like a wave crashing against the shore, pulling us deeper into the tide of our family's past. Sarah spoke of her struggles, the choices she made, and the pain she had tried to shield us from. I learned of the dreams she had abandoned, the fears that had haunted her since childhood. It was a story filled with heartbreak and resilience, a testament to her strength that I had never fully appreciated. With each word, the distance between us began to shrink, the walls we had built slowly crumbling in the face of honesty. James shared his own mistakes, decisions that had led him down a path of regret and sorrow. I listened, my heart aching for the man I had often viewed through a lens of disappointment. "I never meant for things to turn out this way," he said, his voice cracking. "I was young and foolish, and I thought I could handle it all." Mia remained by my side, her presence a reminder that I was not alone in this storm. As my parents bared their souls, I felt the weight of their burdens shifting onto my shoulders. It was overwhelming, but I understood that this was a necessary step towards healing. We could not move forward until we acknowledged the scars of our past. Finally, we sat in a silence that felt like a breath of fresh air after the downpour. The honesty shared had cleared the atmosphere, creating space for healing. I looked at Sarah and James, their faces reflecting a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I could see hope in their eyes, the possibility of rebuilding our family on a foundation of truth. "Thank you for sharing with me," I said softly, gratitude swelling in my chest. "I know it wasn't easy, but it means the world to me." As they nodded, I felt the warmth of connection weaving through us, the promise of new beginnings hanging in the air. We were still a family, despite the storm. Maybe, just maybe, we could emerge stronger than before. I felt a sense of determination rising within me. This was just the beginning of our journey. A step toward a future where love and forgiveness could flourish. I turned to Mia, her reassuring smile reminding me that I had her support every step of the way. Together, we would navigate the complexities of our lives, transforming the revelations into the building blocks of a stronger bond. In that moment, I realized that capturing the truth was not just about a photograph. It was about embracing our stories, acknowledging our pain, and choosing to heal together. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that love was worth fighting for. As we prepared to step into the next chapter, I felt a sense of courage bubbling inside me. I was ready to embrace the challenges, to fight for the love that would bind us closer, and to ensure that the camera would continue to capture not just our struggles, but our triumphs as well. If you're finding solace in Harper's journey, be sure to subscribe for more stories that explore the beauty of resilience, love, and family. With the camera still cradled in my hands, I felt a surge of determination. I could sense that something significant was about to unfold, and I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. The truth was like a shadow lurking around our family, whispering secrets I wasn't fully aware of, but instinctively understood. I glanced at my parents, their faces etched with lines of worry and unspoken words. They were trapped in a web of their own making, and I suddenly felt the weight of responsibility pressing on my small shoulders. Mia was waiting for me outside, her excitement palpable as she waved me over. I knew she would support me no matter what happened. Her unwavering belief in me had always been a source of strength, and today I would need that strength more than ever. I stepped out into the sunshine, the brightness contrasting with the heaviness inside me. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes glimmering with curiosity. I hesitated, unsure of how much to share. Instead of diving into the complexities of my family's drama, I simply said, "I think I need to talk to my mom and dad." As we walked back towards the house, I formulated a plan. I wanted to approach them gently but firmly to let them know that their secrets didn't have to haunt us anymore. When we arrived, I found my mother sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of baked goods, a stark contrast to the tension hanging in the air. My father was pacing in the living room, his brow furrowed in concentration, as if he was trying to solve a complex puzzle. "Mia is here," I announced, hoping the presence of my friend would lighten the mood. Sarah looked up, a flicker of appreciation crossing her face. "Hi, Mia," she said softly, though it felt like she was still miles away from us. James paused his pacing and turned to greet us, but the tension in his eyes remained. It was as if we were all dancing around the truth without daring to step on the toes of the unspoken. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "I think there's something we need to discuss." My parents exchanged glances, and I could see the hesitation in their eyes. They were so used to avoiding confrontation that my directness must have caught them off guard. "Sure, Harper," James said slowly, his voice tinged with reluctance. "What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, feeling Mia's supportive presence beside me. "I found something on my camera," I began, choosing my words carefully. "Something that made me realize we need to be honest with each other." Sarah's gaze sharpened, and James's expression shifted, revealing a mixture of concern and surprise. I could feel the air thickening as I continued. "I want to understand what's happening with you both. It feels like there's so much we're not saying." Sarah sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping as if she was carrying an invisible weight. "Harper, it's complicated," she murmured, her voice laced with sadness. "There are things from our past that we've tried to shield you from, thinking it would protect you." I could see the flicker of pain in her eyes, a reflection of the burden she had been carrying for too long. "Complicated is exactly why we need to talk about it," I insisted, my resolve strengthening. "I don't want to be kept in the dark anymore. I love you both, but I can't keep pretending everything is okay." My heart raced as I watched their reactions. James shifted uncomfortably, his hands fidgeting as if he were searching for the right words, but couldn't find them. Mia stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. "You both deserve to be honest with each other and with Harper," she said. "Running away from the truth isn't helping anyone." I could tell she was trying to bridge the gap that seemed to widen with every passing moment of silence. The room felt charged, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the dam to break. James finally spoke, his voice cracking slightly. "There are mistakes I've made in the past," he began, looking down at the floor as if it might swallow him whole. "Things I thought were buried deep enough to never resurface. But they have, and it's time I face them." I could see the pain etched in his features, and in that moment, I understood how burdensome the weight of guilt could be. My mother nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "We've both made choices that have affected our family in ways we never intended," she said, her voice trembling. "But we thought we were doing what was best for you." I could feel the sorrow in her words, the regret that had rooted itself deep within our home. It was a heartbreaking admission, but it also felt like the first step towards healing. "I want to know everything," I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. "I need to understand why things are the way they are." The atmosphere shifted as both my parents looked at each other, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of hope in their expressions. They were ready to confront their past, to lay it bare before me and embrace the possibility of moving forward together. As they began to share their truths, I held my camera tightly, knowing that this moment, raw and vulnerable, was just as important as any photograph. It was a snapshot of our lives, a pivotal moment where pain could finally transform into understanding. Each revelation brought us closer together, weaving threads of honesty into the fabric of our family. I could feel the walls of silence slowly crumbling, and I knew that our journey toward healing had truly begun. As the atmosphere shifted, each of us seemed to breathe a little easier, as if the weight we'd been carrying had lightened, even if just a fraction. I watched my mother, Sarah, her face painted with a mix of fear and determination, as she wrestled with her own truths. I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes, a silent war waging between the desire to share her burdens and the instinct to shield me from the pain that had festered for too long. Yet something told me that the only way forward was to face those shadows together. I felt a surge of hope mixed with fear for what lay ahead, knowing that the path to healing often meandered through the darkest places. James, my father, sat in a corner, his expression unreadable. The weight of his past choices hung over him like a storm cloud, dark and heavy. I yearned for the father I had grown up with, the one who told stories of bravery and adventure, and I wanted desperately to believe that the man before me was still capable of that warmth and love. With every passing moment, I felt a deep urge to coax him out of his silence, to break down the barriers he had built around himself. "Dad," I began cautiously, my voice trembling slightly as I chose my words, "can you tell us what you were going through back then? Why did you make those choices?" He looked up, surprise etched across his features, as if my question had pierced through a long-standing fog. For a moment, I thought he might retreat once again into the fortress of his regrets. But then I noticed a flicker of vulnerability pass through his eyes, and I realized he was weighing the impact of his words. "Harper," he said slowly, "there are things I did that I'm not proud of. I thought I was protecting you and your mother, but really, I was just running from my mistakes." His voice broke slightly, and I felt the room shift with the gravity of his admission. I glanced at Mia, who had been silently encouraging me from the sidelines, her presence a steadying force. She gave me an encouraging nod, and I turned back to my father. Running doesn't solve anything, though, does it? We all deserve to know the truth, even if it hurts. My heart raced as I spoke, each word hanging in the air like a delicate thread between us. Sarah, who had been listening intently, finally spoke up. "James, we need to understand the reasons behind your choices. It's time for the truth, no matter how painful it may be." With a deep sigh, he looked around the room, taking in both the fierce determination in my mother's gaze and the unwavering support from Mia. "Okay," he said, his voice steadier now, "I'll tell you about the night it all fell apart." I felt my chest tighten with anticipation as he recounted the events that had led to his betrayal, the pressures that had clouded his judgment, and how he had convinced himself that he was acting for our benefit. Each detail was like a jagged piece of glass, cutting through the illusion of the perfect family I had clung to. As he spoke, I could see Sarah's face change, her emotions shifting like the tide. I could sense her heartbreak mingling with an understanding that perhaps, just perhaps, she could find a way to forgive him. I wished I could reach out and comfort her, but I knew this was a moment she had to navigate on her own. Her pain was palpable, and yet, amidst it, there was a glimmer of something else, an acknowledgement that the man sitting in front of her was a flawed human being, just like the rest of us. James finished his tale, his shoulders sagging under the weight of what he had finally unburdened. The silence in the room felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and lingering emotions. I wanted to leap in and fill the void, to chase away the discomfort, but I knew we all needed a moment to process. I looked at Mia, whose eyes mirrored my own confusion and empathy. It felt as though we were standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss filled with the unknown, and I had no idea what lay at the bottom. Finally, it was Sarah who broke the silence. "I've held onto my anger for so long," she said, her voice trembling as she wiped away a tear. "But I can't let it consume me anymore. I want to try and rebuild, not just for us, but for you, Harper." The sincerity in her words brought a rush of warmth into the room, illuminating the dark corners we had all been afraid to confront. I felt a surge of gratitude for my mother's willingness to take that leap of faith, to choose love over resentment. "Maybe we can do this together," I suggested, my heart racing. "We can start fresh, learn to communicate better, and not let secrets poison us anymore." I could see the flicker of hope igniting in both of their eyes. It was the first step toward healing, a promise that we would fight for our family, no matter how challenging the road ahead would be. Mia squeezed my hand, and I could feel the strength of our friendship bolstering me, giving me courage. "We're all in this together," she whispered, her voice strong and reassuring. I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose well within me. We were not just uncovering the past. We were laying the groundwork for a future built on honesty and resilience. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting a golden hue across our living room, I realized that this moment marked a turning point for our family. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where we would learn to embrace our vulnerabilities and face our truths together. And as I glanced at my father and mother, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride, knowing that our collective courage had the power to rewrite our story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows and enveloping our home in a warm embrace, I could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The air felt charged, alive with unspoken thoughts and emotions. I sat at the edge of the couch, my camera resting in my lap, its lens still capturing the remnants of that vulnerable moment. My parents were sitting together, their hands gently intertwined, a gesture that seemed unfamiliar yet profoundly hopeful. It was a small step towards healing. A silent agreement that the journey ahead would be taken together rather than in isolation. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in my father's eyes, a reflection of the pain he had carried for so long. He turned to my mother, his voice quivering slightly as he spoke. "Sarah, I know I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I want to try to make things right. I want you to know that I'm here, ready to face whatever comes next." His honesty cut through the lingering tension like a knife, exposing the raw edges of their shared history. I felt the weight of his words settle over us, heavy yet liberating. Sarah took a deep breath, her expression softening as she met his gaze. "James, it's not just about you anymore. We all need to heal. I've carried my own secrets, my own burdens. I want us to be a family again, but it starts with honesty, complete honesty." I could hear the tremor in her voice, a mixture of fear and resolve. The truth hung in the air, ready to be articulated. And I sensed that this moment could either deepen the fissures between us or become the catalyst for renewal. Encouraged by their exchange, I decided to speak up, my heart racing with the weight of my own revelations. "Mom, Dad, I never meant to dig up the past. I just wanted to capture our moments. But maybe that's exactly what we need to do, capture the truth, every piece of it, no matter how painful." Their eyes turned to me, reflecting a mix of surprise and understanding, as if I had somehow unlocked a door they both hesitated to open. Mia's voice echoed in my mind, her unwavering support always encouraged me to stand firm. I thought about how she would be proud of me for taking this leap. "We can't just pretend everything is fine," I continued, feeling a surge of courage. "We have to confront what happened, and together we can find a way to move forward." The room was silent for a moment, and I could see the tension in my parents' bodies begin to ease, as if they had been holding their breath for too long. James finally nodded, his expression shifting from guardedness to a tentative hope. "You're right, Harper. I've been afraid to talk about my past, about the choices that hurt us, but I see now that it's not just my burden to carry. If I want to be a better father, I need to be honest with you both." His admission felt like a release, as if he was shedding the weight of years of regret. Sarah reached over, squeezing his hand. "We can do this, James, together, but we have to be patient with ourselves and with each other. It won't be easy, but we owe it to Harper to try." I felt a swell of gratitude for my mother's strength, a reminder that sometimes healing meant leaning on one another. As the shadows lengthened and the golden light faded, I realized we were standing at a crossroads, each of us holding a piece of the puzzle that formed our family's history. The camera in my lap felt heavier now. Yet it was also a symbol of my determination to document not just the pretty moments, but the messy, complicated ones too. I knew that sharing our story might inspire others to confront their own truths, to let go of the burdens they carried. "Maybe we should talk about what happened, what really happened," I suggested. My voice trembled slightly, a mix of fear and resolve. It's time to put everything on the table, no more secrets. The idea filled me with both dread and excitement. I was ready to dive into the depths of our family's history, to unravel the threads that had tangled us for so long. James took a deep breath, his eyes glistening as he prepared to share. "When I was younger, I made some choices that put a strain on our family. I thought I was protecting you, Sarah, but it only created walls between us." The pain in his voice was palpable, but there was also a glimmer of relief in his confession. I lost sight of what really mattered. Sarah's eyes were filled with understanding as she replied, "You weren't the only one, James. I've held on to my own secrets, thinking I was shielding you both from pain. But in the process, I only built more distance." It was a powerful moment of connection as we began to peel back the layers of hurt that had kept us apart for too long. I felt a sense of empowerment as they shared their truths, realizing that vulnerability could lead to healing. It wasn't just about revealing the past, it was about building a future where we could embrace our flaws together. As they spoke, I took a deep breath and raised my camera, capturing not just their faces, but the spirit of our family as we began to reclaim our narrative. This was our moment, a chance to break free from the chains of silence that had bound us. I knew that sharing our story could resonate with others, inspiring them to confront their truths and embrace the healing power of honesty. If you're reading this, I urge you to reflect on your own family dynamics. What secrets lie hidden, waiting to be brought into the light? Perhaps it's time to gather your loved ones and share your stories. Together, you might just find the path to healing and love that you didn't know was waiting for you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over our backyard, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. The camera hung heavily around my neck, a constant reminder of the moment that had turned our lives upside down. I glanced towards the house, where the front door was slightly ajar, and I could hear the muffled voices of my parents inside. It was the first time in what felt like forever that the air was thick with tension instead of the usual laughter and warmth that filled our home. I hesitated, caught between the urge to escape the unfolding drama and the responsibility I felt to face it head-on. Mia stood beside me, her presence a comforting anchor amid the storm swirling inside my heart. She had been a steadfast support throughout this entire ordeal, encouraging me to confront the secrets my family had buried deep. "You need to talk to them, Harper," she said softly, her eyes filled with concern. "You can't let this hang over you. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to them." I nodded, knowing she was right, but the fear of what I might uncover kept me frozen in place. I had already witnessed so much pain through the lens of my camera. Could I bear to hear the words that would inevitably unravel what little stability we had left? Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, Mia right by my side. As we entered the house, the atmosphere shifted. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table, the remnants of dinner still scattered around, untouched. Sarah's eyes were red, betraying her struggle to hold back tears, while James stared out of the window, lost in thought. The air felt thick with unspoken words and hidden fears. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. They both turned to me, surprise etched on their faces. It was clear that they hadn't expected me to take this step, but deep down, I knew it was necessary for all of us to find some semblance of peace. James took a deep breath, his expression tense, and nodded slowly. "Of course, sweetheart," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah reached out a hand, her fingers trembling as she gestured for me to sit down. I took a seat, feeling the weight of their gazes upon me, and glanced at Mia, who offered me a reassuring smile from across the table. I felt a surge of courage wash over me, an instinctual push to peel back the layers of silence that had wrapped themselves around our family. I found something on my camera," I started, my heart racing as I spoke the words. "Something that made me realize we need to be honest with each other." I recounted the moment I had captured, the hurried conversation between my parents, the hidden glances, the unspoken truths that had woven a web of secrecy around us. With each word I spoke, I could see the color drain from Sarah's face, and James's expression hardened, as if I had laid bare the very soul of our family's struggles. "Harper, you shouldn't have seen that," Sarah finally said, her voice breaking. "It's not what you think." The plea in her tone tugged at my heart, but I knew I had to press on. "But it is what I think, Mom. There's something more going on, and we can't keep ignoring it." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. James broke the stillness, his voice low and filled with regret. "I never wanted you to be part of this, Harper. Your mother and we've made mistakes that have affected you more than we realized." I could see the pain etched on his face, the burdens of guilt that he had carried for so long. It was a moment of vulnerability that I had never witnessed before, and it shook me to my core. "But I need to understand, Dad," I pleaded, the urgency in my voice rising. "We can't heal if we don't talk about it. You can't keep hiding from the past." Sarah's tears began to flow, and I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. I felt a surge of warmth as she squeezed my fingers tightly, as is holding on to hope itself. "Please," I whispered, "let's face this together." James looked at Sarah, and for the first time, I could see them communicate without words. It was as if a silent agreement passed between them, a mutual understanding that we could no longer live in the shadows of their choices. After what felt like an eternity, he nodded slowly, then turned to me. "You're right, Harper. We owe you the truth." As he began to recount the events of his past, my heart raced, and I could feel Mia's supportive gaze behind me. James spoke about the mistakes that had led to their struggles, revealing the weight of decisions that had echoed through our lives. I felt a mix of sadness and anger at the things he shared, but also a strange sense of relief. Finally, we were shedding the layers of secrecy that had built walls between us. Sarah joined in, her voice trembling but steady as she added her own perspective, sharing her fears and regrets. It was a difficult conversation, filled with tears and heartache, but also with the unmistakable thread of love that tied us together. By the end, I realized that we were not just facing the past, we were building a bridge to a future where honesty reigned. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, leaving the room illuminated only by the soft glow of the kitchen light, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. It was as though a heavy burden had been lifted, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. I looked at my parents, their faces still marked by the pain of their past, but also illuminated by the possibility of forgiveness. We were starting to heal, step by step, together. And as I sat there, hand in hand with my parents and Mia by my side, I realized that this was only the beginning of our journey towards rebuilding the trust that had been shattered long ago.